Welcome to Who's Your Neighbor? I'm Terry McGill, and I'm happy to be your neighbor. And like Mr. Rogers, it doesn't matter whether we're in the same town or not because we're a global community anymore. So, what I want to share with you tonight is a neighbor that you probably haven't heard about, like most of them, people that are undiscovered jewels. Tonight's guest, about 10 years ago, she decided to do a project. And I thought it was going to be, she was talking about an art project, and I couldn't connect the dots. She decided to take books, preferably paperbacks, because they're easier to carry. And I'm going, so carry what? They're easier for street people to carry. So who are the most underserved people around? Certainly a large part of the underserved are what many of us call street people or homeless. And she's co-written a book. And before I go any further into what she's the expert on, I would like for you to welcome Lara Moulton. Hello.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you were willing to show up on a December the 22nd evening. And I think you've gone out of town for the holidays with your family even.
Yeah, I'm coming to you live from my parents' room with my family in the background. So very fun.
I love it.
Fun to be in both places at once.
And around the world, because and hello to all of our guests. I don't know if anybody has showed up yet, but I know that the viewers will literally be from around the world, mostly English-speaking countries, but literally around the world. So, Laura, StreetBooks, your program that you birthed around 10 or so years ago. How did that start?
It's a great question. I was doing various kinds of projects at the time that were participatory, that were sort of community minded. And it's kind of a brand of social practice art. It's come into a name. I didn't know that I was practicing it for the longest time, and then encountered the term. But I had done a few projects that involved kind of unwieldy rolling creations and the public, and interacting with people as they passed. And so StreetBooks came about as a 3-month art project. That was my original intent. And I got a grant from the Regional Arts and Culture Council to start it. My brother helped me build out the bicycle itself. I got a used Haley trike from Craigslist. The guy knocked the price down when he heard what my scheme was, that I was going to use it as a library that brought books to people living outside that might not access the mainstream library. So that's kind of the origin story. And I really thought that it was going to be something that went June to August. But when I went to my last shift in August, I had a very regular patron named Keith who checked out new books and said, "I'll see you next week. Thanks so much." And I just realized I had started this service and I could not just fold it up and count it as another art project I'd done. It just felt like it had the capacity to live on. And so I'm kind of shocked 11 years later that we are alive and thriving, and it's a nonprofit, and there's a crew of librarians and a great board and staff. So yeah, I think it's a testament to the number of people who came forward to help over time. It definitely would not have survived without so many people putting their hearts into it,
It always takes a village.
Yeah.
Speaking of going back to trike, though, that's a 3-wheeled bicycle?
It is, yeah.
And so what did you build up on it?
Well, it was interesting. It was just a very plain plywood box with a wheel on either side of that, and then the seat and the back wheel is behind it. So it's sort of a reverse trike, I guess. And my brother is an architect and a builder, and he helped me really make it beautiful. He added wood trim and stencils with the StreetBooks name, and painted it a really beautiful color. He built a little drawer that pulled out so that I could pull up and park the bike and pull out this little drawer out the front and prop it with a kickstand so that it was more available for people and visible for people to come by and look without them having to really approach close to look down into the box. And that became key because I think people were wary about what this was and did it require money and who was it for? And so it helped a lot that they could come kind of inspect it without having to commit right away to whatever crazy scheme I was doing, you know.
And that's a community. Back when I was a social worker, there was stereotyping, and then there's social typing. Social typing being identifying factors of a group or groups of people. And so hesitancy, not wanting to stand out, those kinds of things, being very wary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also in this case, you know, I was struck by how often people were really grateful that this service would be offered to them, because I think they were not invited to things. They were not invited to participate or to come to dinners or to gather as a general rule. And so anything that was sort of an art project unfolding that was geared exactly for them, that they qualified for 100% if they were living out of a car or, you know, in the doorway of a place in Old Town. I think that's what made it really successful. I also feel like it's important to emphasize that it is not a charity. We're not a charitable organization. It's a collaboration, this library, with people who are willing to come, you know, seek us out and make time for us in a day when they may have far more pressing things going on, you know. So that's been really, really a cool thing to see.
So you're not a not-for-profit?
We are a nonprofit, but I just want to emphasize that I don't think we feel like we are performing a charity when we embark on our library shifts. It's very much a community that we've built and a set of friendships, and, you know, we provide a service, but I just think it's an important distinction. I think I really do feel like it is a collaboration with people who are otherwise really lacking resources, but still make time, you know, to meet up with us and seek us out each week and return a book and check a new one out, you know.
So how many books do you know or imagine that have been loaned out over the 11 years?
Oh my gosh, it's thousands and thousands. And it's all kinds. You know, we have such a diverse range of interests and readership, you know, lots of Louis L'Amour and some sort of bodice ripper romance sometimes. Lots of contemporary fiction and nonfiction that goes out. Crossword puzzles and coloring books and things like that have been really popular during the pandemic because people are, you know, they've been basically exposed to the elements more than ever, given the closure of public spaces, you know. So things to pass the time, things to sort of absorb their attention, you know. It's been very cool, but tons of books. That's one of our problems, is that it's very hard for me and for most of our crew to turn down book donations, because every box is like Christmas morning, you know. We're excited to see what it is. And we can't always use them, but often we can, because we do get a lot of different, very diverse requests.
So you've also co-written a book, Loners.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have this book.
Would you spell the first word? Loner?
Yeah, Loners, Loaners, Loners, the making of a street library. We owe our publisher, Michael Heald, for that title, actually. We had a bunch on a list that we'd brainstormed, and Loners is the one that was the winner in the end. And I co-wrote that with my sidekick, Ben Hodgson. He goes by Hodge, who I met when he was living outdoors in Old Town. And I met up on a library shift with him at Skidmore Fountain. And the book is about how we connect on the street and build a friendship, how he transitions back inside to an apartment, and then how we kind of continue to grow the library. He likes to say that he's been, with us since the beginning, but he just used to be on the other side of the counter, And so he's been a street librarian for us. He's on the board of directors. And he's a great part of the StreetBooks story. He's a super crucial part of our story.
The book itself, as I read it, I was both drawn and at times overwhelmed, or at least whelmed, because it brought up so many fears in me that sometimes I'd read 3 pages and I put it down for 3 days.
Yeah.
And I'd do my own processing. But the story itself, I have actually, because I work with one of my other jobs, the way I do my life now, I meet with people, usually online, who have issues in their lives, and they want some guidance. I've recommended the book to 2 of them. One of them is a social worker who needed to, that may be judgmental, obviously is, but I felt she would benefit by if she reads all the way. Anybody that reads through the book, it doesn't matter who they are, that book just is amazing. I just suggested to my wife this evening that she might want to look through it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for spreading the word. Yeah, I think it's one of the things I talk about in that book is how when I embarked on this project, I thought that I was approaching with a pretty open mind, and that I was not making assumptions about the people that I would encounter and that I would engage with. And of course, right away I realized, and pretty much every shift, I realize I too have approached with a set of assumptions, even though I was trying to be completely open about what people might come with. And I think, I would recommend people read the book, of course, but I would say that is something that was very humbling, just realizing that there were so many things that I was about to learn in this work from people. And yeah, so I think it's, I'm so proud that it's done and that we have this physical object. That was, Hodge and I definitely, spent some time, somewhere between 5 and 8 years, depending on what the year was like. But it was a happy, something that came of the pandemic. We were able to kind of focus on it in a way we hadn't before, in part because some other things slowed down. So we're just very pleased to have it in the world.
So am I, because the transparency, the absolute honesty in the book, for those of you that are listening and watching, one of them will write from this much to the whole page, and then on the next page, the other one will write something. So it's back and forth and back and forth, and it's pretty much tied together in time. And so you read the evolution of these 2 individuals, but at a level that it's rare to read in a book.
Yeah,
so,
I think I was just going to say, one of the things I love about it is that it captures Hodge and his great humor, and it, he tells his own story, and he has such a distinct voice and is so funny. And I feel like that is, that's a really important story to join with this other narrative already in progress about people that live outside. I think it has the capacity to kind of shift our thinking or what we assumed about people who live in a tent on our street. So that's our hope, is that helps, kind of shift the narrative around it.
Laura, I would want to offer to you, your part of that book, I believe, is equally important, because you show up a mirror. Certainly did for me. Like, wow.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So I noticed at the excuse me, at the very back of the book, there's 2 or 3 pages about how you too in your city can develop a StreetBooks program. Has anybody else done this?
Yeah, it's so cool. In Austin, Texas, a man named Patrick Crawley has for several years, that before we published this book, he came across StreetBooks, and I think he was looking to celebrate and kind of mark 20 years of sobriety. He wanted to do something to give back to his community. And so we worked on helping him to develop a prototype in Texas. And so he put together this project and has done it ever since. So we have a StreetBooks Austin wing, and we were able to travel to Austin some years back. It was pre-pandemic, 2019 maybe, to celebrate and to be part of the book festival there with Patrick, which was very cool. But we've had some creative sort of projects that have come about after someone has written to us and said, I'm inspired, I want to do this thing. And we've got a young person, a woman in Sydney, Australia, who does a version of this. She doesn't use a bicycle, but she was inspired to do something like it. There's a man in Poland who built a beautiful bike that he calls the Bookworm that's very similar to our bike. And he uses it's kind of a hybrid of art projects and genealogy and history, and so it's a little bit different than what we do, but he was inspired by the physical bike that we had built. So I feel like there are these kind of threads that have gone out in different directions, and just bonds that we've forged with people who are like-minded, that want to do something similar. And that's one thing we emphasize in our how-to in the back of the book. And that is just that any gesture, no matter how small, can count. So it might look like you greeting a person on your block that lives in a tent. In Portland right now, so many people are outside, and it's in neighborhoods. It's not just the downtown core. But it might look like just saying hello to someone and beginning just with eye contact when you pass. And then if you establish that this person is not opposed to contact or doesn't need extra space, you could say, hey, I'm wondering if you'd be interested in a book. And then, next step is you bring that person a book. And so I think it's really not, it's not very mysterious. It's very, straightforward in some ways once you make an initial hello and just kind of give people plenty of space. Then I think that sometimes some really interesting conversations can happen, So yeah,
I can only imagine.
I hope it proliferates. I mean, we joke at StreetBooks that it would be terrific to have them, proliferate across all cities, because it really is, it's very hard to not have something good come of a conversation about a book, right? I mean, that's just, I don't know. It's like instant community and instant comparing notes and humor. Like a guy will ask for where the red fern grows. And I'll say, oh my gosh, do you not remember how that ends? And he'll laugh and say, yeah, but I haven't read it since I was in grade school and I just want to look at it. So there are these just great conversations that come about at the book library,
Have you ever had a request for the Velveteen rabbit?
I don't know. I don't remember a request for it, but I definitely remember having it and having it go out. So someone wanted it. Yeah.
It's got some of my favorite quotes in it.
Yeah, and I mean, aren't books great? Like kids books, and I've gotten Dr. Seuss for a guy. Just I think nostalgia is part of it. Sometimes people need reading glasses. That's something we also provide. And I had a person who wasn't interested in a book, but she was so grateful for the reading glasses and said, "Now I can read my medication."
Wow.
Um, and I just left thinking, oh my gosh, like some of these needs are so profound, and I just wasn't even thinking about this. So yeah, so it's very cool to see what people will request, and that's a funny part of the book with Hodge, his own brand of street librarianship and his distinct shifts in Old Town and that sort of thing. Um, he's got a pretty good sense of humor about it.
He definitely has a sense of humor. Yeah, that comes through very strongly in the book.
Yeah.
So for our watchers and listeners, if you're in the Portland, Oregon area, and if you are not, if you're in the local area, then you might want to donate some books to StreetBooks. And Lara, what are the considerations? Paperbacks?
Yeah, I think, because of the pandemic, the public spaces, the dining halls, and the lounges and areas that we were keeping stocked and could use hardbacks for, those have gone away to some degree. And for that reason, we are trying to stick just to paperbacks right now. It's a consideration of weight, and also some of our patrons don't want to carry, a pretty substantial hardback book in their backpack along with their gear. So paperbacks are great. I have at streetbooks.org, we keep a pretty updated list of what we'd most like. And so if people want to visit there, there is a section that says support StreetBooks, and that will give you good information about getting in contact with us. In the new year, we'll take donations again. So people
Donations
can
of books.
Uh-huh.
So that leads me to another type of donation. As a not-for-profit organization, 501c3, I believe is the IRS code in here in the United States,
That's
you
right.
can make a tax-deductible contribution. How can they do that, Lara?
That's a great question, Terry. Thank you for asking that. And they can do the same link, streetbooks.org. In the upper right-hand corner, it says support StreetBooks, and you can make an online donation. There's also information if people prefer to write a check and send it to the P.O. box. All of that information is there as well. I will say that I write handwritten thank you postcards to every person that sends a check. So if that's an incentive for people, I will write you a postcard.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm still enchanted by the book, Loners. And I think one of the reasons that Michael liked that title so much is that there's a little play on words there. I think of street people as loners, Loner. But then if you're loaning a book, Loaner, it's like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
Put those two together, and there's something there that's working at the unconscious level too.
Yeah.
That's how my mind works anyway.
We were grateful for Michael's brilliance. I think Michael, he's with Perfect Day Publishing. That's who published our book. And his meticulous editing, but also his vision of what the book could be, was enormously helpful to Hodge and I, because we had been mucking around in those pages for some years, and you stop being able to see anymore whether you've got something that could be interesting to people. And so we're so grateful to him. He was definitely part of what brought that into being,
Can't see the forest if you're in the middle of the trees.
Exactly. We were like, are these trees even good anymore?
Yeah. Well, Lara, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so happy that you're with your family for these holiday times. And I do want to stay connected with you. And I have more of those same titles that I brought by that one day. If you, I know that they get worn out over time. They're paperbacks. So there are more where those came from.
That's great.
So,
We're so grateful, Terry. Thank you. And thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate the conversation.
Maybe not as much as I do. I literally think of you as the kind of woman who could tame eagles and ride dragons, clench your toes, and stand face to face with somebody with purple hair who's gotten their face right up in yours. I don't know that I would have done that. That's what I liked so much about Loners, the book, is that it kept showing me more facets of me that I hadn't looked at. And candidly, didn't always want to.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being you. And after 11 years, because you could have stepped away after, 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And you didn't. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
So for our listeners and watchers, now and in the future, StreetBooks, I really recommend that you get the book Loners, Loaners, The Making of a Street Library, I think is the rest of the title. It's an amazing book. It will show you a side of people that candidly I looked down on. I had a whole bunch of assumptions about, street people. They just can't cut it. And I was afraid of them. And, some of them, probably a good thing to keep your distance. But for most, they want to read books. Yeah. So one other thing that I want to mention, this is a project of the Dow Center Portland, full title, Master Shaw's Dow Healing Center Portland. There's 12 of these centers around the world. Most of us, because of COVID, we're virtual centers right now. Really looking forward to the time to when we can open doors again and have people meet again. That's how this program grew about. COVID really put into my face as I read people's stories on Facebook of loneliness, of being shut in with somebody that they shouldn't be shut in with, but they had to survive, so they had to stay with that person and until it got too violent. But another aspect of the Dow Center Portland is I'd like to offer you a free gift, and that is to receive a Dow Healing Hands blessing. You can think of it as an energy transmission. It's very high level. It can be for anything you want, and you can receive an instantaneous 10-minute blessing. Well, so you can receive a 10-minute blessing to begin in an instant. And I'll ask our producer, Michelle, to put that link up, and there it is. She's magic, pushing all those buttons, and you don't even see her face, and things appear. So what is a Dow Healing Hands blessing? It's for literally any aspect of your life, and it doesn't matter what it is. Finances, intelligence, COVID and boost immunity, loneliness, physical disabilities of any kind, or enhancing abilities, getting a job, keeping a job, starting a career, leaving a career, you name it. I mean, literally, home blessings. That's one of the things that I specialize in. So you can receive a Dow Hands blessing. You can ask for a blessing for your home. I mean, this is the holidays, right? This is one of the most intense emotionally times of the year. Statistically, check it out on the web. There's so many documented things out there about how tough it is. So you can get a Dow. You can only get it once from the website, but you can tell other people about it too. And you could also learn about how to become a Tao Healing Hands practitioner. Starting the first of the year, January the 30th, there'll be a one-day program where you can receive the transmission into your hand. Blew me away. I was like, what's going on with my hand? Because I used to be a very, very grounded person, and I still think I'm grounded, but boy, I'll tell you, I've experienced things that just make me wonder how I could ever believe that they didn't exist. So the Tao Hands blessing is free. It's a gift. And it may show you something that you haven't known about before, and it won't hurt you, and it's free. So, and there's some stories, some videos on there, people. One, just this amazing being from, where's he come? Not Jamaica. Somewhere down in the Caribbean islands. Anyway, he had a huge pain in his arm. And the doctors up there in Toronto, he went from doctor to doctor. They said, well, your best option is like, we can amputate your arm here at the elbow. He went, no, thank you. And then he wandered down onto the person who first began to offer these Tao Hands, and he received a Tao Hands blessing, and his pain went down 90%. And he stuck around. He came back. He wanted more. And now he's one of the most powerful healers in the world. Martinique. There we go. He's in Martinique, the island. He goes between his home in Toronto with his wife and children and the island where he's the magical healer. Anyway, you can have your experience. And we will not be back here next Wednesday. That's the Wednesday after Christmas and before New Year's. We will be back on, I believe it's the first Wednesday I know in January. I believe it's the 5th of January. So there will be another guest, relatively unknown, who makes an incredible difference in the lives of people. What I suggest you might do is go to facebook.com/Tao, T-A-O, Center, C-E-N-T-E-R, here in the United States. That's how we spell it. And then the last word is Portland. So facebook.com/Tao Center Portland. And you can view all 9 episodes. There are some truly amazing people that I've had the great opportunity to meet. Some of them I've known for 25 years, and some of them I've only met like 4 months ago, like Lara. Until next year. Who's your neighbor?